And a lot of times the problem is people are like, I'm a responsible mother now. I'm a responsible adult and I feel dead inside. And I'm like, yeah, because you are not living.
Are you ready to take back control of your time and energy? But the thought of where to start feels overwhelming. I created something for you. It's called the Energy Finder Quiz. Yep. This quiz takes less than 2 minutes and it helps you identify where to focus so you can conquer your dreams without feeling like you're failing as a mother. After coaching hundreds of women, helping them reverse engineer how they want to feel in their personal and professional lives, I started to notice 4 hidden skills that women must master in order to create the work-life balance that they crave. So head on over to Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com/life quiz. heatherchauvin.com/life, LIFE quiz, QUIZ, and get started. I even give you specific podcast episodes to listen to based on your Energy Finder quiz results. The goal is to show you where to focus so you can regain your time and energy and become the woman you deeply know you are capable of becoming. heatherchauvin.com/life quiz.
So it's January 2019, in the middle of a long winter of my patience being very thin and my energy being very low. From balancing parenting a 4-year-old with being an early stage entrepreneur trying to get my business off the ground. I'm in Tanzania now for 2 weeks, leading a group of 12 amazing souls for a week of volunteering and a week of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. We've got a few entrepreneurs with us, including Jess, who's a new life coach, excited to experience the inner journey work. There's a few folks from corporate, including Shelley, who works in HR but doesn't love the company she works for. Jen is on a sabbatical, trying to figure out her next move, and is feeling a bit of guilt about leaving her kids to discover herself. And Baksho is a recent retiree. They have all joined us on this journey abroad for various reasons, each seeking something more in their life. And overall, everything is going amazingly. It's an incredible team of people. We've just finished our first week where we volunteered building a perimeter fence together, and the local community was super appreciative and we all celebrated. And now we are a few days into our epic adventure up Kilimanjaro. And I am deeply miserable. Firstly, it's raining. And my usual motherhood tendencies have resulted in me sacrificing my mittens and my secondary rain poncho to a couple of teammates in need before realizing my raincoat was old and the waterproof lining was worn away in areas. So all I can feel is rain seeping in around my neck and trickling down my back. I am cold and wet and exhausted. But what is making me truly miserable is the guilt I am feeling about missing my daughter's 5th birthday just a few days earlier. I'm having a moment of thinking to myself, what am I doing on this mountain? And in this moment of complete and total discomfort and unhappiness, I turn to my business partner at the time and tell her that if I ever suggest us leading a Kilimanjaro program again, she needs to stop me and tell me no. Fast forward a few days later, and we have reached the summit of Kilimanjaro. And the love and support I feel within our team is truly unlike anything I have ever experienced before. We felt like family, that we're now bonded for life. One team, one dream couldn't have been a better motto for us. Then, a couple of evenings later, at our closing dinner, Baksho, the retiree, expressed to us how she now felt like Wonder Woman and couldn't wait to show up powerfully as herself in her volunteer work as a disability advocate when she returns home. Jen, who had been feeling guilty about leaving her children, shared with us that her daughter had written about her for a school assignment while she was away. She wrote that she wished everyone could be more like her mother, who was away volunteering and making a difference in the world. Throughout the follow-up coaching calls over the next couple of months, Shelley from HR shared that she had left her job to take a similar role in a company that shared her newly discovered values. And Jen finished her sabbatical and took a role as an executive director of an international NGO. And Jess, the new coach, who had really struggled up the mountain, shared that she was massively rocking her business with her newfound confidence because of Kilimanjaro. She shared that she thought every single day about the mountain. If I can do that, I can do anything. And for me, I returned home feeling so rejuvenated and full of energy. And I discovered a whole new well of patience for my daughter, who awesomely enough now impatiently cannot wait to climb Kilimanjaro and volunteer abroad with me, and thinks that doing it on her birthday would be a fabulous idea. And I also returned home feeling renewed and even more passionate than ever about the work that I was doing and the difference I was making in the lives of my clients and in the communities we were volunteering in. And as we were deciding what our next transformative travel program would be, the feedback we kept hearing from our participants in the weeks following our program was just so crazy amazing. From the deep sense of community they experienced, better understanding about themselves, transformed relationships, clarity of purpose, deep sense of gratitude, crazy feelings of courage and confidence, to more authentic and intentional living, we pretty much knew that we were going to be volunteering for another week in Tanzania and that I would be climbing up Kilimanjaro again. And that is now happening this fall because of COVID. And because I learned that when we get uncomfortable, whether it's being cold, wet, and exhausted, or feeling guilty about missing our children's birthday, that's where the discovery and growth happens. That's when we realize what we are truly capable of and the possibilities that exist for us, our relationships, and our world. And it is so worth getting uncomfortable.
I love it. Well, you brought the ideal story to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. So welcome, Jill.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So secretly, I've told you I've been on the fence about joining, and I'm like, that is a very good story for sales strategy to be like, damn, you took me through a whole journey. I feel like I climbed a mountain. So here I was just like, yes. So I haven't climbed a mountain with you. I haven't been to Tanzania. I will be on one of your trips, like hands down. And adventure is a core desired feeling of mine. And that's something that I didn't really get the opportunity or privilege to experience a lot when I was a child. And I realized over the years, I know as we grow, we kind of like cut off those parts of ourselves that we really desire. And then you throw on responsibility and guilt and shame and overwhelm. And then let's use money as the excuse. Let's use time as the excuse. Like, oh, the clouds are not aligned. The planets, like excuse, right? But we will invest in a gap year for our children. We will invest in saving for our children's post-secondary education, literally like the second they come out of the womb. And then when the child decides like, hey, I'm not going to go to school or I'm going to do this instead, we're angry and miserable because we're like, screw you. I've been like literally saving. And then what else do we do? They can go, we're doing the thing to like barely feed ourselves so that they can go to the school that they want, all these things. And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, we're killing ourselves, our dreams, our desires, our physical body, mental body, emotional body, because we think giving to other people so that they can become self-actualized, so that they can do this. So I'm like, amen, all the things. That whole emotional process is exactly what I take people through in coaching, which is exactly what you see in coaching. It's anything that you had to overcome in your life is you decide, you make a decision, you want to vomit, shit your pants, you want to back out, you get halfway up the mountain, and now you're telling yourself, never do I want to do this again, ever. You get to the top, the closing, you're like, that was so great, so magical. You know what? Let's do it again. And then rinse and repeat. You're like, let's have another baby. Let's give birth. Let's go through this horrible process. Let's adopt. Let's do this. Let's run another marathon. Why am I doing this to myself? So beyond guilt, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the pursuit. I wrote down guilt to discover myself. Mm-hmm. Curious your relationship with it and what you witness and see in other people of like the guilt and how that shows up in people's lives of actually the pursuit of self-awareness.
Oh my goodness. I get so many women being like, oh my God, this sounds amazing, amazing. Like so excited. They've literally been like, oh my God, I think I manifested your program. Like, this is my dream. I need all the things. I'm like lost in motherhood, whatever it might be. And then the guilt comes up. The like, how can I possibly leave my children? How can I possibly spend that kind of money on myself? Those are the two big, like, really, how can I take the time away from my children? Or how can I and I think in their minds, it's like, take the money away from my children. Like, how can I take that money and spend it on myself and my happiness? And it breaks my heart to the ones that can't quite
get there,
wrap their heads around it. And for me, I have been fortunate to have understood and learned that my happiness is more likely to result in my children's happiness. Like if I am happy, my children are likely to be happy. Even Thich Nhat Hanh says that like the best inheritance we can give our children is being happy. And so what I try to help people with, and I see it, but it's so hard, is helping them to understand like you investing this time will actually help you to become a better mother. And even if, regardless of whether it even does that or not, even if it just helps you just be happy, isn't that worth it in your life? You know, it doesn't always have to be about your children all the time. We can take time to focus on ourselves, to attune to ourselves, to meet our own needs, to meet our own desires. But luckily, when we do that, it actually does result in our children being happier. Yes. And for them, there may be a temporary period of discomfort as well. They might go through a missing of you. They might go through.
If they are connected to you, they will go through a missing of you. They
will.
Yeah.
But on the flip end of that, they will also often come to discover like, wow, I spent some amazing time with, whoever it was they were left with. I bonded with them. Mommy came back. Like, how awesome is this? And here she is. And she's now like super happy and wants to play with me more. And there's all of these like positive things that come out as well from this time away that, took guilt and everything. So for me, when I personally travel, yes, there's often a little bit of like, I'm leaving again and that kind of stuff. But I know, one, my daughter's going to have an amazing time with whoever she's left with. It's going to be incredible bonding. That doesn't happen the same way when I'm there. Mm. And I am ultimately role modeling for her that when she gets older, she won't have to choose between motherhood and adventuring, or motherhood and traveling, or motherhood and a fulfilling career, because she'll have been like, oh, my mom did it all. Like, she did the things. She had me. I was small, but she still went. And knowing that I'm providing her that like image, that possibility for her future, I'm ultimately like alleviating her of her future mom guilt that she's potentially going to be feeling.
Yeah.
So kind of like trying to, break that thought pattern that we all seem to have, that choosing ourselves is okay. And it actually helps our children to learn to choose themselves, down the road or now.
Yes. And I'm a huge fan of critical thinking and having our own thoughts, right? Rather than jumping on the bandwagon of somebody else's thought process and going, well, I just did that because I was told to. But it's like, what is that, your thought or is that somebody else's thought? And I truly believe, I believe in epigenetics and the science of trauma. And there's also science in healing, and epigenetics is that where you get to, yes, we string it along, but you can also break that from future generations. So here you are going, I'm going to feel the trauma. I'm going to feel the emotional baggage that women carry. And I'm going to process it and heal it so that I break that cycle for my child. Some will do that. Some will not do that. And that's okay. It's totally okay. We can't shame ourselves, and we're not in one life. We're not going to heal everything. But I always say, you're passing the baton. So when my son was a year old, I decided to go to Guatemala for 2 weeks. And I was young. So I was a young mom. So I was around 20, 21-ish. Okay. And I was in university, and then everyone else is traveling in university, and they're the same age as me, but they don't have children. And I remember the strong desire inside of me that was go, 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 go. And my mother was open to watching my son for 2 weeks. And I remember deciding to go and getting backlash from other family members. And it was family members that I didn't already have a wild mental respect for. So I was like, yeah, I knew you would reply like that. And this is just another little check in the box of why I don't tell you anything. So I'm losing respect for those people because they're not honoring who I want to be. They're literally just honoring their beliefs about who I need to be. So I go. And I don't know what it is, if I was just the old soul in me, that wisdom that was I really want to go. When am I ever going to be able to do this again? But you can't go. You have a small child. You are a bad mother. Bad mother. I go. My mom's go, whatever. I really enjoyed it, but I was also grieving a lot the whole time. That was the first time I jumped from teenagerhood to parenthood. And that was the first time I was really by myself, but also doing something to lift me up. And that experience was so healing for me because it was so painful emotionally. And I remember calling home and talking to my son, and I bawled my fucking eyes out. And I returned home, and I remember feeling more connected to him. Because before there was this resentment, this I sacrificed myself for you. And then I chose, it makes me actually want to cry. I chose myself, and I felt so guilty. And then I returned, and I'm there's the connection. And we think that disconnecting ourselves gives to other people. It fucking doesn't. And there's no evidence of that. So why do you think we believe that, Jill?
I think we believe that because I don't want to say the patriarchy, but I do. I think
Let's go there.
We believe that because over time, mothers, that whole maternal, oh, you're the mother, has been so idealized and romanticized, and this beautiful dedication to your children, which is beautiful, but it's been done so much that it's now any attention anywhere else is horrible. And I think that's something we all now, it is seeped into us. And as women, we start carrying this, even the idea that if you're not a mother, you're somehow less than, I know people.
Yeah. The whole woman identity thing is ridiculous to me, where I'm you are still enough, and that's okay. You don't need to burn yourself out because you don't have children.
Exactly. And if you choose not to have children, if you're it's just totally amazing. And
you can't.
Yeah, or you can't, whatever. But we've put so much into this idea of motherhood and what it means. And we do, raise up these mothers who sacrifice themselves and all of that. And we sort of celebrate that sometimes. And so the idea of like choosing yourself, you're suddenly seen as a horrible mother. Like I'm the same. I get like angry emojis when I talk about how I'm going and leaving, my daughter. I've been called like,
I see some of your comments, which are very intriguing.
Yeah, I was called a bare minimum mother. Like, and yeah, because I'm choosing me. Like there is, unfortunately, like I said, society has made it that motherhood is like almost the only choice as a woman, and you have to give 150%, and your children have to be your focus all the time, and their happiness is above yours. Like, I just don't understand that. Because in my opinion, what you're doing is raising children, and you're educating them and sending them to the best schools and doing all the things, and then they're going to be like, oh, I want to be a parent. And instead of going off and like becoming president or prime minister or an astronaut or something, they're going to be like, oh, but I had kids. And I believe being a parent now means throwing my entire life into my children. And then that's what they do. And I'm like, when are we going to stop that, break it, and live our lives and be parents? Like, be happy and be parents. I really think this whole societal thing, and now we see it on Instagram, on Facebook, it's like everyone is posting their perfect things, and moms feel like they have to truly do it all. Like, you have to be the mom that's got the like perfect birthday party with the perfect cake, and you have to show up and volunteer at school with the homemade cookies and like do all of the things. And if you're not, you're somehow less than. And you're not a good mom. And
you're burning out, and you're literally perpetuating this hustle culture, and you're overcompensating, like, to dismantle all of that and go, wow, like that's a full-time job. But I've had to unhook myself from the get-go, like day one, that I just can't be that. I didn't have the opportunity. First of all, I couldn't financially afford it. I was like, how do people do these birthday parties and like matching clothes and all of these things? Like, I can't pay that much for a cake. I need to buy it out of the box at the dollar store because I have nothing. And so, yeah, it comes from a very privileged place. And oh my God, it's annoying. It's so annoying. And then, yeah, it just looks perfect. And on the inside, again, they're trying to cover up this insecurity. But then I see these influencers talking like, and when I say influencers, I almost want to call them like micro celebrities or actual celebrities. And I'm like, how much did you fucking spend on that birthday party? And you just did a rant on how you were burnt out and this and this and this and this. And you're just barely surviving because, again, you're trying to please. And so such a dismantling. And again, if that brings you so much fucking joy and it's authentic happiness, awesome sauce. I really don't know how you do it, but awesome. And it's not a desire of mine. So awesome sauce for you. So let's go back to adventure. So here I am. So first of all, if I said this, anytime I say it to my husband, he and I are very opposite. So I'm like, okay, if I go to Tanzania, I can build this fence in this village and then I can climb this mountain. He's like, why the heck would you volunteer on vacation? That is his philosophy. He's like, that is the opposite of joy. You couldn't pay me enough money to do that. So understanding that if you're saying, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, that is a desire that is aligned with what your soul is craving. So that is a breadcrumb, and you lead in that direction. Because the idea of going to an all-inclusive resort, to me, feels painful. I will stay there, and then I'm going to venture into town and try to find the people and talk to them and go to like the local stuff. Totally. But that is emotionally uncomfortable for me. So you're like, yes, yes, yes. So I know you're like that, but you've been your next level after me. I'm like the bougie version, and you're like, you're in it to win it. I just haven't had that many experiences, right? So I'm all in it. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But here's the point. Yes, guilt comes in. Yes, excuses come in. Yes, all the things. But when the desire is there and the guilt comes up, right? The guilt is the block. The guilt is the universe saying, how bad do you want it? The guilt is there because society inputs it in there. The guilt is there because you're human. You get to choose if you allow that to run the show. How do you process guilt? Because you feel it. People say, how do I get over it? I don't believe in getting over feelings. I believe in processing or managing them. So how do you process guilt when you're about to take that adventure or you're on it and your daughter's like, I want to come.
Usually it's understanding the bigger picture. It's knowing what the whole thing means. And it is understanding this is a moment of guilt. It's a feeling. It will pass. And understanding the benefits. I am the same. I am programmed. I have done assessments that have been like, you are an adventurer. Routine sucks the life out of me. I need adventure. I need novelty. I need to be stimulated, like all of those things. I learned that through, in so many different ways. And so I get that momentary guilt feels crappy, feels whatever, but not adventuring actually will lead me to like depression and like low energy. Like it will actually take me down more than the feeling.
Let's go there. Yeah. So I actually put on my 2022 calendar. I like my journal prompt. Wouldn't it be nice? And I come up with my big 50 of like what I'd like to accomplish in a year. Sometimes it's random things like get a new gate for our fence. And one of the things that I put is have a monthly adventure, like get out monthly. And part of that was during COVID, we would either drive and go to a hotel. We camped in people's backyards using the app Hip Camp. Like I created adventure when the world wasn't allowing you to have adventure, right? You do staycations, you do all the things, and it feeds you, feeds your soul. So let's talk about depression because, and again, when I'm saying depression, we're referring this to energetic levels. So not necessarily a physical diagnosis or whatever that is, but I believe in modern medicine. I believe in asking for help. I believe in doctors. I believe I'm here because of modern medicine. And so that's not what we're talking about, but we're choosing that inner control that we have, that inner desire to say something is off and I have control over something here. So choosing yourself and saying, I need to honor this part of myself that craves adventure, even if I'm in a relationship with someone who doesn't crave it, which is me. I'm like, are you depressed? This is awful. Like, I need to move. I work from home. I am home. Like, this is annoying as shit. And I could go in a little cocoon, but it's depressive. So talk about that. How did you discover that? Like,
so I feel like I'd always kind of been like, oh, I think I'm happy, but I wasn't. Didn't even realize it. And, I was working jobs I didn't really like and kind of in like average relationships, whatever. And then I went and I lived in Uganda for a year, and it was the best year of my life. Personally, professionally, it was just like a spectacular, amazing year. I was doing disability sport development. I was like it was amazing. I got engaged while I was there, like all over amazingness. And then we decided to come home because we're going to get married and have kids and all the things. So let's come back to Toronto. And you would think I'd come back like super like excited. I'm like getting married. It's all great. I came home and started feeling really, really down. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt like I couldn't go back to 9 to 5. Anyways, I got into some coaching and I started discovering myself. And I discovered what my values were. And I realized that things like adventure, community, giving back, having purpose, like all of these things that lit me up had been so present in my life in Uganda and were like non-existent here in Toronto. And I just was basically like, so my two choices, I go back to Uganda, keep living that life, or I honor my values and foster them and create them and literally like make that stuff happen here in my life, or I'm not going to be happy. And one of the big ones that came up was adventure. Every day in Uganda, I was waking up uncertain as to like, how's the day going to unfold? And like every day was different. We'd ride like motorcycle taxis. And like at the end of the workday, it wasn't just like go home, watch Netflix. It'd be like, what are we going to do tonight? You know, we're going to go to a club, go shoot pool, go somewhere fun. Like every day was just something new, something adventurous. And so, yeah, came back, knew that, and was like, okay. And that's when I decided to become an entrepreneur, because I knew there'd be a lot of adventure and, you know, newness in that. I created a business that aligned with all my values and my strengths and all the things, so I would feel purposeful. I started figuring out how I would give back through both my business and personally. And I just really figured out that adventure was such a key part in my life. And then, to be honest, and a little bit vulnerable, we ended up in some couples therapy at some point, and I literally did an assessment, and they were like, your husband or your partner at the time was like a stabilizer, and I was an adventurer, and everything it described. And it is something that I have just known now about myself. And if I go long stretches where life feels too routine, and I'm not getting out and getting novelty and new experience and pushing myself out of my comfort zone, I start to feel really stagnant. I start to like feel low. My energy gets low. I start feeling more impatient about things. Like I just sort of start feeling blah.
You're lighting me up, and I will tell you why. What you're describing is energetic time management, which is the key, like the tool that I teach, which is reverse engineering how you want to feel. And a lot of times the problem is people are like, I'm a responsible mother now. I'm a responsible adult and I feel dead inside. And I'm like, yeah, because you are not living. And so to get to that point where you're like, adventure, adventure, adventure. And so when like the shit I've had to go through mentally to accept that I am the type of person that I am and that my partner is not, he's okay with that. So right now, the partnership will survive. Who knows where the future will take us? But he's like, go jump off a mountain, go do what you want. Totally fine. I'm going to be over here doing my thing, being the stabilizer. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, which is A-okay. But here's the thing is like, how do you infuse that energy, right? So when I'm feeling stagnant, so a perfect example, life example of this is I want to be in the woods all the time and I don't want anyone to know where I am. So we got a trailer. We put in the trailer in the woods. We literally have to drive 5 hours from our house to go to the woods. So what happens last weekend when the storm, a tree almost fell on our trailer? We weren't there. So we decided not to go last weekend because we knew the weather was going to be crazy. So they send us a thing. The neighbor's trailer gone, like just gone. Ours is like right there on the trailer. And I was like, good thing we weren't there. But I said to my husband, I'm like, okay, so we invested this time, this money, this energy to like be there to go back and forth, which really ignites my adventure, like let's seek the area, whatever. But we can't go there this weekend and we really want to. I said, I need to get out. So I'm like, we need to go on an adventure. And I'm like, Airbnb day of, right? Like back, give me a toothbrush, underwear, I'm good to go. And he's like, where are we going? What are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then I have like the one child who has like OCD tendencies, sensory stuff. And like, is there bugs there? Is there this? And I'm just like, we're going. And he's like, well, what? And I'm just like, I'm going to give you 3 days to process this and pretend we have a plan. I don't have a plan, right? He's like, you shoot, you aim, you whatever, you do it backwards. Anyways, my point is I'm still honoring what I need, even though we kind of already created that, but it didn't work. So instead of saying, well, we're just going to wait till it's open, I'm like, I need to honor this now because it's going to get worse next week or the week after, and I'm going to feel dead inside and stagnant. Honoring the adventure side, 1, gives me life. 2, benefits my business, benefits my relationships, benefits my health and longevity, benefits. The only negative is when I let fear or guilt run the show.
Exactly. And that's it. And I know that I need adventure or I will be unhappy and it will end up being taken out on my daughter and all the people and all the things. Yeah. And so yes, in that moment, I feel guilt, but I'm kind of like, can't let that creep in because I know the bigger payoff when I go and I have my adventure and I can't let this guilt or whatever hold me back.
Okay. Can you tell I'm lit up by this conversation? It is so aligned with how I want to feel because we're talking about adventure. If I wasn't the adventurous type and you were having this conversation with me, I would probably be like, that sounds awful. And I would shrink and I'm sure you've had that conversation with people and they're like, you're weird. And pay attention to how you react to things because that is a sign of, do I lean in or do I not? So here's my question for you. And I want to get on this topic for 5 minutes. I'm raising a teenager. This teenager is the male version of me. I can see how adventure is one of his values. And he went from childhood to adulthood, implanting the beliefs of, I don't want to say patriarchy, but I can, implanting the beliefs that he's a man and emotional weakness, emotions are weakness. He's got to figure it out himself, independence, I'm going to label all the things. He has to get a job and make money. I got to work. If I overwork, that will make me happy. All of these things I'm watching and I'm going, I don't role model this. This is a cultural belief that this child is now acquiring. And I can see his soul slowly leaving his body and it's getting worse. Plus the hormones, plus. But I'm like, I won't stand for this. And I see also how educational systems strip out values. And, I'm aware, but I'm still feel like part of me is still trapped in this because he's older and I don't necessarily have 100% control like I would if it was a toddler. And I was like, let's go travel the world. Right now he's an independent person who has friends and is forming roots. And I'm like, you're not honoring your values, which is why you feel out of alignment. And he's got to figure out his little dark night of the soul. What is your perspective on not just giving our kids adventure for the sake of giving our kids adventure, but when children really need to move and explore and be, and that's part of their fucking purpose in the world. And we're stripping that out of them culturally. Curious what you think about that.
Yes, I see that a lot. I mean, oh my gosh, the whole everyone's on iPads, everyone's gaming. And I'm like, I feel like that's counter to just most of us. We're nobody is programmed for that. We're programmed to be outdoors and adventuring or even outdoors in stillness. Do you know, there are some kids that are just want to go and lie in a field. Cool. And then there are the kids that are going to want to climb the tree. But no kid is innately programmed to want to sit on they get it because the gaming world has created things that just suck us in. But yeah, so it's the question of the how to get them to live the way that you can tell, you just said, that there's this adventurous soul in him, that he's like you, and how can you get him to do that? And it's hard.
How I get him to do that. There's boundaries. It's boundaries and expectations. And I hear a lot when I say, oh, I know how. It's a job, but I have to have wild discernment. I see my kids, they're night and day. They went to camp a few years and it was a intensive, disconnected experience, not these luxury resort places you see. And they came back and I'm like, your soul is back in your body. But here's the thing. And my middle child hated it because he's not that type. So, but it's you're human and you still need to be connected to nature. So if you want to be on social or you want to do gaming shit, and that's where your brain is focused and you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be that type of person, great. But to be aligned and healthy, like you still need to be connected to nature. Even people are like, I don't like nature. It's like, I don't like taking supplements either. And I don't like drinking water all the time, but I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's that whole bigger, like you said, they're like, he's an adult now. And so how do you get him to understand? And sometimes, I mean, one of the things that we do is literally like, when are you happy in your life and what's been going on, and helping them to understand that and helping them to see, oh, wait, I was really happy after my summer at camp. I was really happy, like having them have the understanding, the inner understanding themselves. I actually used to coach gap year kids through their gap year so that it was an intentional year of learning and discovery and not a year that they like partied away and just got some like, minimum wage job, whatever. And it's helping them to recognize what their values are. Like we know it and we see it, but until they actually have the experience of being like, oh, this is what I value and these things make me happy. And now I know, and then can continue to engage. I think that's a piece of it. It's trying to help them to take or figure out how, to help them understand what their values are. Because then kind of until you have them enrolled, then it's like you're just trying to force them to do things that you're like, I know this is good for you, eat your veggies. And it's kind of like when you can help them understand, and he's like, oh, I am adventurous. You're right. When I did this, it totally lit me up. And when I do too much of, whatever, it doesn't. That's one of the things that we do. And there's, amazing programs like for teens and youth to go off and have these adventures and do some of the inner work, like similar to the kind of programs that we run, to help them sort of get rid of some of the traits that, they've probably picked up that might be a little more masculine, and helping them to recognize, like, I can be softer and it's not a horrible thing. And I can attune to my feelings and my emotions and stuff. We take people basically around like in their late teens, because we know that can be such a powerful experience to like be giving back, using our hands, like building. I mean, oh my gosh, I can't tell you the number of participants who've come away from the physical building piece to be like, I had no idea how capable I was.
Yeah.
With that, and just feeling really good about themselves. And that's the kind of moment, if your son was to like build something with his hands and whatever, and be like, bam, look at that feeling, and help them to be like, oh, I love the feeling of accomplishment when building something with my hands, or I love the feeling of accomplishment when I've, canoed for 3 days straight, whatever it might be. I don't know. It's very tricky. I have a daughter, and I don't know where she's going to head in the world, but she's figuring herself out, and I'm hoping to help her along the way too.
Well, I think as parents, we're guides. That's all we are. Yeah. And when we think we have control, that's the hilarious portion of it. And what I'm realizing raising a teenager is really the empathy and compassion of understanding where he's at, like especially in his brain development, and letting go of the rest. But the funny thing is like I could control, quote unquote, when he was younger, but now that he's older in the world, it's like, oh, we don't have control over everything. It's this false evidence of certainty and safety that we have, which is why people stay in jobs and in relationships and the way that they buy things, all the things, right? It's just fear. It's always fear. And we're just guides. That's all we are, is guides. But when you become an adult, and we're going to wrap this up, but when you become an adult, the interesting part is like you're watching people have their human experience, and the beliefs that we have culturally about parenting and academics and all of this. And then you become the adults that had that pressure put on you. And then you're in your 40s, your 50s, whatever. And you decide, or 30s, you're like, oh, now I'm going to unlearn and do what I wish my parents did when I was a teenager, which was like, you know what, let's take the pressure off you academically, because you don't have to become a doctor or a lawyer or this or that. If you want to, go for it. But we're not going to make you do that just because we want you to do that for our ego's sake. We're going to allow you to go figure out who the fuck you want to be, so that you actually have basic life skills and you're not just checking the boxes and being numb and dead inside. I still have friends that are in school, And then I have friends that are like, oh my gosh, like, look at you. And I was like, yeah, I was probably voted the least to be successful. Like, out of all the people I know, they're like, never in a million years did I thought she would get to where she is, because I struggled because I did not fit the mold. So here we are. Boom, 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 coming back, adventure. Being emotionally uncomfortable. We've had an in-depth conversation that, like, by choosing yourself, you are actually choosing other people. You are healing generational patterns. You're doing all these things. So tell everybody where they can find more of you and your juicy goodness, and about your trip coming up.
Awesome. So yes, we have our Courage Community Kilimanjaro program coming up, and it's happening in October. And you can head to our website, ugoimpact.com, and click on...
Spell that.
UGO Impact, IMPACT.com. So ugoimpact.com. And at the top there's a little Tanzania 2022 that you can click on, and it'll take you to a page with all the information and an apply button. And that is where you can click on the apply button, fill out the form, and then myself or one of my team will be in touch to discuss next steps and, find out more about you, make sure you're a good fit for the program, make sure it's a good fit for you. And even if you're not interested in specifically that program, we do have programs coming up in 2023 that don't include the mountain, that include just a week of volunteering if that part really isn't, your jam. But fill in the form regardless, and just note that, you might be interested in something else or whatever, and we can add you to our mailing list.
Love it. Jill, you are a gift to the world. Thank you for doing the emotionally uncomfortable work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe you are such a gift and such a light in this world. And so I'm so honored to have been here today. And this was absolutely such a pleasure to chat and connect. Really. Thank you.
There it is. You just listened to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. If you want to take this conversation to the next level, head on over to our private Facebook group community, heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN. That's heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. Also, if you are a huge fan of this show, please rate and review it on iTunes. Every review helps another woman like you take back control of how she wants to feel and become emotionally uncomfortable. I truly believe the better we feel, the more alive we become. This is how we are going to change the world. And if you've been watching me for a while, if you've been on the fence and you're curious, how can Heather help me? Head on over to heatherchauvin.com/work with me to check out my mastery and mastery business coaching programs. That's heatherchauvin.com/work with me.